This video is for educational and commentary purposes only. It discusses claims made in a published article and some conspiracy theories. I'm not making any accusations against individuals or organizations, and all mentions of public figures, programs, or theories are based on public discourse and alleged claims. Please do your own research and draw your own conclusions. If you were in the Gifted and Talented program, it's likely that you have few, if any, memories of what actually happened to you while you were in the Gifted program. What if I told you it wasn't the pink drink that was making you forget your memories, and it was probably something far more sinister? Today I want to talk about an article that I've skimmed through many times. It's called The Illuminati Formula to Create a Complete Undetectable Mind Control Slave by Cisco Wheeler and Fritz Springmeier. It was released sometime in the 90s. And Fritz Springmeier is a person who's done a lot of research regarding bloodlines and mind control and the Illuminati, and he's considered a fringe researcher, popular in conspiracy niches. So before we get into this, I want to say, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. There has been no actual evidence of the Monarch mind control program, which is said to be an offset of the MK Ultra experimentation, unless you count all of the testimonies from victims, all the research that Fritz Springmeier did with insiders, people who had left the Illuminati or different occult organizations, and specialists who were a part of it. So I have read through this article many times. It's 500 pages. And when I first started reading it, I really just did a very light skim through the first handful of chapters, and I was reading the index. So I skipped ahead to the parts that were most interesting to me at the time, which were the mind control slaves and something about satanic ritual abuse, because at the time I was dealing with some of that stuff in my real life. And it's actually the thing that woke me up to realizing that I myself was being hypnotized and controlled by some of these people. And it really helped me escape the people that I was getting involved with and helped me see on a deeper level what could have been going on. So I separated from these people a little over a year ago, and I've been doing my own thing. I haven't talked about it publicly, and I don't know if I will, because there's a very real fear that victims have when they've been involved with occult organizations or certain organizations that are said to run the country. So I have mentioned it briefly on my channel though. So if you dig through some of my videos, I'm sure you can find some stuff. However, the reason I haven't talked about it is because, like I said, the fear is very real. And what is even crazier about this is that I've set that stuff aside and kind of tried to forget about it for the last year and focus on other things, like going a different direction with the Starletta show, working on Statements by Alex, and getting back to my astrology and human design readings and working with clients one-on-one. But back in May, I started having memories of the Gifted program, and I've done a lot of research in the meantime about different government programs that were going on around the same time that the Gifted program was going on. For example, I've looked into the Bloodlines. I looked into the Gifted IQ test that was created by Louis Terman. He did the longest running study on gifted children. I think the IQ test was developed in the late 1800s, but the guy who developed it was all about eugenics and bloodlines and believed that intelligence was inherited through our genetics. And he did one of the longest running studies on gifted children where they followed them throughout their lives. And one of the students in the study was allegedly Michael Aquino's mom. Now, if you don't know who Michael Aquino is, Michael Aquino was in our military. I don't exactly remember what part of the military, but he wrote a book called From Psyops to Mind War, which talked a lot about using mind control on people instead of bombs and nuclear warfare. And he also was allegedly convicted of a lot of bad stuff involving kids. I won't go into
the exact details, but if you look it up, you can figure out all the things that he was accused of, which is really dark. Then he went on to found this Temple of Set, which is an offset of Satanism. Anyways, as you can see, both of those things are kind of dark origins. And I did make a video about bloodline tracking. And if you're interested in diving down the rabbit hole on that, I highly recommend watching one of my bloodline tracking videos. I have one on generational Cursebreakers right after my bloodlines video, but I don't want to get too off topic on this one. But I've researched the bloodline thing and I found a lot of like really telling stuff in that. And the gifted program has dark origins. We've also on my channel explored as far back as Project Paperclip, which was German Nazi scientists coming over in the 1940s, and then the Roswell crash in 1947. Project Aquarius, Project Looking Glass, where they were using gifted kids to operate the machinery that allowed them to look into the future and see the future timelines. And then MK Ultra, of course, how they were experimenting on probably millions of unsuspecting people. They were slipping acid in people's drinks without them realizing it. And the MK Ultra experiments got pretty dark. And then they had to shut it down. I believe it was I don't know if it was in the 70s or 80s when they shut it down, but many people believe that there's an offshoot to MK Ultra called Monarch, or Project Monarch, or Monarch programming. And that is exactly what I want to get into today. That is what I read about in the Illuminati formula used to create a complete undetectable mind control slave. And what is really crazy about it is a lot of the research that I've done on the gifted program, and after speaking to many fellow gifted kids who have family or connections to the military or the Freemasons, often lived on bases, and they were often either born prematurely, born with an umbilical cord wrapped around their neck, had very early childhood surgery from the time they were an infant. So it was some kind of early childhood trauma as an infant. I'm getting chills right now, which feels like confirmation of this stuff. And they were also reading and writing and developing early. If you qualified to be in the gifted program, you had probably an IQ of 140 or higher, at least from everybody I've talked to. Some of us had IQs well over 140. And then we often had exceptional ability in the creative and performing arts, or we had some kind of advanced learning capability. So what's really crazy is when I started digging in this article, one of the things that it talks about, which is the most frightening, is identity fracturing, which comes from early childhood trauma. And what they talked about is that they were talking about the bloodlines in that as well, and how these elite family, I don't want to say bloodlines too much, but these elite members of societies and all of their ancestors track people through their ancestry. When they're tracking these children through the ancestry, most of the children who are picked out to be the mind control slaves in part of the Monarch programming are part of the bloodlines. But something disturbing I found out was that they're not only using children from the appropriate ancestry lines, we'll call it that. They were also picking children who were not. And the children that they picked, according to this article, were blue-eyed and blonde-haired. And they also had to have an IQ of 130 or higher, or else programming would not work on them. They were also victims of some kind of early childhood trauma, not only in the wound with the mother, so the mother being poked and prodded with needles or given some kind of medication or something to help with pregnancy, which creates trauma for the child when they are in the womb. But this next form of childhood trauma is when they're in the hospital and they're born prematurely. That's hugely traumatic on an infant. So when those babies are born prematurely, they're often taken away from the mother, and then they have caretakers in the hospital, which, according to this article, allegedly there are many members of these societies, secret societies, that work as doctors or nurses, and they are assigned those positions so they can keep a foothold in the biggest industries that we all rely on and take part in this mass mind control and conditioning. So those people hold the baby, and part of the job of these caretakers is to love bomb children, essentially. In order to split the personality, they want to create a completely loving environment for the child. They want to hold them and smother them with love. So when they're about, I don't remember if it was 18 months old or what age they exactly do the programming at, but at some point in the child's life, before the age of 3, they fracture the identity through taking that caretaker who was the most loving, generous person. While the baby is suffering trauma, they're associating the voice of the handler as their source of safety because that person is saving them and guiding them through this infant trauma. And then when they're children, that same handler who showed them love does something absolutely unthinkable that fractures the mind of the person and creates something called alters, which are multiple or dissociative identities used to protect the individual from this massively traumatic event that happened to them. So my question is, have they been doing this to people outside of the ancestral lines that they talk about? Or is it just the ancestral lines? According to this article, it's even children outside the ancestral lines. But the age of 18 months is very important because that's the age a lot of these kids started to walk, talk. And they were also sent, me in particular, my mom told me a couple months ago, I was sent when I was 18 months to go get testing done because she told my doctor I was developing early, and he was like, oh, wonderful. And I think my doctor was German, which is interesting because a lot of these Illuminati members, and what they talk about in the article is that it was Nazi Germany, Nazis from Germany, Nazi scientists that came over to help with the CIA and the mind control programming. And then according to this article, allegedly the CIA was also created by the Illuminati. I hope I could say all this stuff right, but we're speaking allegedly, okay? I'm not making any outrageous claims here. I'm just talking about an article. So anyways, 18 months is when the doctor suggested that I get testing, that my mom gets testing done on me. I don't remember any of this testing. I was 18 months old, so how would I remember, right? And the early childhood testing can be something as simple as like playing with shapes, probably the ink blot things, probably sound flashes. And I had retinal coloboma, which means they were flashing things in my eyes. The retina, that as I've talked about in other videos, is how a lot of these devices that I've spoken about in other videos are like the devices and the US patents that they have for mind control done with microwaves, for example, or radio wave frequency. It is done through flashing images in the retina, and that's how we take it in. And I just find it very interesting that what I do remember in my childhood are a lot of eye tests and a lot of I don't know about experiments, but testing done on my eyes because I'm blind in one eye. And it would turn white in pictures with flash photography. So that was one of the things for testing, something about flashing light. And then obviously in the GATE and the gifted program, we remember sound frequencies and the hearing tests where you'd have to raise your hand if you could hear a certain frequency. Not to mention the gateway tapes, which uses hemisync technology and copies EEG brainwaves, which they also mention in this article. They talk about EEG waves and copying brainwaves, and I didn't read too much about it. It might have been later on in the article, but I read about 65 pages of it, and I just had to stop because this information was just so heavy and so dark. I just couldn't go any further with it because it was connecting a lot of dots for me. Not only the one with the early infant trauma and the ancestral lines, which I've covered in the Bloodlines and the generational curses videos I made, but because they mentioned the specific age of 18 months, which is what my mom mentioned to me when they were talking about genetic testing done on me as a kid, or whatever the testing was to see, to help me because I was developing early. The other thing is that they choose kids who have an easier time dissociating. Hi, airplane that comes in at the most inappropriate times on my videos. Okay, so early childhood testing done at 18 months, and then the identity fracturing goes until about 3 years, which is when your brain is in the very earliest waves of programming in delta. So you're like literally an energetic sponge. So how crazy is when to think about certain ancestral lines being tested since birth. And not to mention the alleged taking of kids, especially from hospitals who provide free services because they're associated with these secret societies and organizations which provide the free services. So when they're born to mothers who have drug addiction, for example, they can take these infants, pronounce them as deceased, and then take them to their facilities, which are often warehouses where they put the children in cages and they use them in ritual abuse scenarios and sacrifices for the deities that they worship. What is interesting about that, the DARE program, because the DARE program is something that was rolled out in schools around the same time in the late 80s, which is right before this article came out. So late 80s, the DARE program came out. There is so much funding or so much research done that the DARE program was not effective, and it actually probably made more people do or partake in the use of substances. So if you think about all of the stuff that's coming out in Hollywood, especially about Pizzagate and all that, where are all of these children allegedly coming from? Well, when you have a lot of poverty-stricken areas and parents that cannot care for their children, plus you have on your media, the media, television programming, and music that, oh, procreate, procreate, procreate. Let me show you body parts all the time on social media and Instagram and make that in your algorithm. So you want to procreate, and you want to procreate, you want to procreate. And now we're going to put substances in your face, and we're going to promote those heavily. So you're going to also want to do substances, which is going to make you procreate with people that you wouldn't normally choose to procreate with. And now you can't support the child. So you can't afford to give birth to the child either. So you go to a low income clinic to give birth, which is ruled, or which is part of these organizations, because these organizations have money and they've got people and plants everywhere, right? So if you're a low income person, yeah, you get free Medicare and Medicaid and medical services because you then have access to your, can I say blood? They have access to that now, and they can also come back and say, oh, your family member, your child did not make the procedure, so they are deceased and you didn't want it anyway. Or they can make secret deals with these people and say, okay, we know you can't care for them, but how would you like a check of $500,000 or $1 million for us to take it off your hands? So that's another way that they're able to have tons, allegedly, again, entertainment purposes only, just reading accounts, an article that has accounts allegedly from real life people, allegedly. So yeah, so that could answer the question of like how all of these children are taken. So that is just kind of scary to think about, because ultimately what that organization is all about is the New World Order, the creation of the New World Order, which is set to be 2030, which, as I mentioned in other videos about the 1% and alien disclosure, was also the year that in the Mayan calendar says since 2012 we've been in unity consciousness, and it's kind of like an experimentation on human consciousness, and in 2030 there will be a timeline split. And if you look back at Project Aquarius and Project Looking Glass, the ETs, the Greys that were captured, said that like they're very much pushing for this apocalyptic timeline where darkness and chaos rules the earth, because if it doesn't, the Greys won't exist as an offset of the human race, who's an offset of the human race because of what happened after we lived in a radioactive world with all of these weird synthetic chemicals and stuff that were a result of humans destroying each other. So the other possibility for a timeline split is that humanity rises in love and consciousness and realizes that we're sovereign beings, and then we come together, we rise above all this stuff, we stop allowing ourselves to become victim to this mind control, we wake up from it, we stop using substances, we stop seeing, maybe we stop seeing the doctors because doctors are associated with this. And I'm not saying don't see a doctor, but I am just saying that there's a huge group of people right now awakening to do and realizing that they're more into holistic approaches to medicine, because a lot of the medications we're prescribed often have even worse side effects. And there's also people who've come out in the industry, pharmaceutical industries, that experiment on this stuff and create this stuff and say, well, we create something for symptoms. We don't look at the causation of what issues you have. We treat symptoms. You can probably, if you know anything about big pharma, I'm pretty sure doctors say that too. They treat symptoms. We're not looking at the causes. So brings me back to another point. In this article I've been talking about, there is a gigantic list of organizations involved in this alleged Monarch programming. That includes the military, the Air Force, Alcoholics Anonymous, CIA, Catholic Church, and a bunch of other stuff. And if you're interested in researching for yourself, it's within the first 65 pages of the article. And if you skim through the article, which I'm going to link to my description, you can find for yourself what organizations are involved. But those are the ones that stuck out to me on top of my head, especially because a lot of gifted kids and gifted children came from military families and often were recruited to work for organizations like Mensa or smart government type programs. And then the other ones, a lot of us were funneled into acting. So the craziest thing, going back to what I was reading about in the article, is that they also, during this mind control and Monarch programming, were doing personality tests, and the children fell within 3 categories. I forget what they named the 3 categories, but the 3 categories were about what way to funnel or train the children. So not only did they need children with an IQ of 130 or higher, they also needed children who could just dissociate easily. And they also needed children, they also did personality tests and assessment to see what path to push them down. So are they going to be the math kids? Are they going to be the doctors and the lawyers? Are they going to be the actors and the creatives? Because they would run different tests on different kids according to the personality assessment. Now, I don't know about you all, but think to yourself, do you feel you've been pushed down a certain path in your lifetime, especially if you were a gate kid? Because the gate kids and the gifted kids are the ones that have been targeted. Like, there's allegedly, I just don't see, because like I said, they couldn't do Monarch mind control on anyone with an IQ of 130 or of less than 130, because it wouldn't work. So anyways, when they do the initial mind programming of the children, it breaks their personality at its core and creates alters. And each alter or sub-personality is programmed with a different personality or function. So you might have one alter is going to protect the other. It's kind of like the movie Split, how Kevin, the original alter personality in the movie Split. I got chills right now because, oh my God, sorry, this is so crazy whenever that happens. It's like the movie Split. He's got the older woman who lives inside of him that protects all the other alters and protects Kevin. And then he's got the little boy alter that protects him. And then he's got the teenage alter, whatever else he has inside him. He's got multiple personalities. And then he's ultimately has the beast inside of him. Wow, these chills won't go away. That's really wild and frightening to think about. And what is even more frightening to me is that after I read all this stuff, I just got, like, I had to take a step back from it because it was very heavy. And I just realized, like, holy crap, like, blonde hair. I don't have straight blue eyes. I actually have blue-green eyes with heterochromia ring of gold and brown in the middle. And most gate kids or gifted kids also have heterochromia. But the children mentioned were blonde hair and blue-eyed and high IQ, creative, early childhood trauma or separation from birth, trauma to the mother when mother was pregnant, separated at 18 months to get tests done, and until the age of 3. And then after 3, you're still programmable until about 6 or 7. And then you're still programmable, but a little less because you're going from delta, which ends at 3, to theta, which ends around 7, which goes to alpha, which ends around 12, and then beta after 12 primarily. So, sorry, I keep getting scrambled around here, but I think what I was trying to say with the splits in personality is that we often have alters and different fragments of our personality. So it made me think to myself, what if a lot of us are programs of this mind control And then we go on to program others without even realizing that we're doing their work by programming other people. And the other thing I was talking about that was frightening to me after I read this article, I needed to kind of like take a step back and ground myself. So I decided to meditate, and I listened to the Gifted Kids guided meditation that I have on my channel from Baker Belts that I posted like a month or so ago. And I've listened to this thing twice. So this was my third time listening to it. The first time I listened to it, I think I had flashbacks of a dream of being in a gigantic warehouse that I felt like was an education room or classroom. And all I remember was like a lady in like a business skirt or business attire and like brown hair, like in a bun or something like that, and walking down hallways, and each of the classrooms had like locks on them. Or they were like, I don't know, I think they had like clear windows or something where you could like see through, but we were in like a concrete building. And that's odd to me because when I share that memory with some people, there's a lot of people in my gate group who also remember like a concrete building. So the second time I did the gifted meditation, I only saw the school buses, and I saw playing with leaves and sycamore trees and something about recess, but I didn't remember anything about the classroom. I vaguely remembered a classroom and nap time. And then this third time I was meditating, I fell asleep he talks you down to like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, like he gets your body relaxed and then does the countdown of numbers. Right after he said number 1, he was talking about how you go and like put yourself in a room, see yourself in a room. Now you see a door, you're about to open this door. Right as I was about to open the door, my dog comes over to me and starts licking my face, almost as if my dog was trying to protect me from something. And then I put the blanket over my head so my dog couldn't lick me anymore or disrupt me. And then I fell asleep during the meditation part, but I woke up right on cue as he was bringing us back into reality after the hypnosis. And then, which I find so odd that my dog did that, because when I was listening to the Gateway tapes trying to do an out-of-body experiment, whatever episode that was of the Gateway tapes, the very same dog came up to me and laid on me and disrupted my meditative state a little bit. He brought me more back to like grounding and awareness, because I was starting to get meditating. I was in that meditative state where I was like, I guess dissociating, or like about to be outside of my body. Like I didn't feel my body, I was dissociating from my body, but him putting his head on me reminded me I was still in my body. And this is the same dog that woke me up 2 nights in a row. The dog that is ironically from Roswell, New Mexico. I call him my alien dog. He woke me up 2 times in a row at 4 a.m. when I kept having that song by Brand New get flashed in my head, the song about Montauk Point, which I've also made videos about. So Montauk Point, the portal, time travel, etc. And then I did like a big long channeled message that I also posted on my channel, and is a 2-part video. I'll link that as well. But I'm after saying all this and sitting with all of this and those experiences I had with my dog, there's something inside me that thinks I'm not supposed to remember this, because it might be something really traumatic. And I don't know how long as an infant I was gone, or what these adults were doing to me. I don't know if my parents weren't in the testing room with me and they just handed us to specialists. It could have been a 9 to 5 thing. It could have been a daycare thing. And if it was a dark thing controlled by secret societies, allegedly, what if this testing had people coming in? What if this testing was taking children off site? Anything could have been happening. They could have also been attaching us, doing like the EEG brainwave stuff connected to us, or playing us subliminal messages while we're put in a hypnotic state, which we're already in and so easy to be in because we're in delta brainwaves. So this is all kind of terrifying to me. And this is kind of like the most frightened I've ever been since talking about this stuff. Like, I'm not really worried anything's gonna happen, but I'm more so worried about like, wow, this is a lot darker than we thought. But I don't like to leave people in a dark place. And what I think is happening is that this has been attempted on us. But where I have hope still is that good things are happening still. Good connections are being made through all of this. People are waking up at the same time. My handler situation last year, I call it the handler situation because I don't know what else to call it, because it literally reads straight out of a MK Ultra mind control thing with the way this person was handling me or treating me, or this group of people was. And I feel like I had dreams about it and gut feelings about it that made me walk away. So something is looking out for me, protecting me from that, telling me ahead of time who these people are and that I need to watch out. Another weird thing that happened to me in meditation the other day is that like I saw a kid. I don't know if I was the kid or if I was just seeing a kid, but there was like a kid, and then the kid had a mask on, and there was an adult standing with the kid who had taken the kid somewhere, and the adult had a red devil mask on and was like scaring the kid and said, "You're about to meet the cult soon, don't worry," but it was keeping the child in a state of fear. So that was like a weird vision that I had during meditation. So again, I don't know if these things are just from watching movies and just lingering things that might be in my subconscious, or if these are some kind of weird, scrambled, fragmented memories that are like little pieces of the puzzle that we put together, because I wouldn't have been able to make this video 2 months ago before I had done all this additional research and dug deeper into that article. But that article and going through it and researching it just definitely puts a lot of things in perspective about what's going on. And I honestly, you know, even though all this stuff is alleged, none of it's proven or anything, it's just kind of interesting, especially considering all the stuff coming out in Hollywood right now and how Hollywood controls the media. CIA's infiltrated the Hollywood. They're doing mass mind control through the programming. And there's all this emphasis on alien disclosure and this timeline split in 2030 and the New World Order. So I think that they're trying, you know, with all this stuff that's in a lot of programming, a lot of hostile stuff with aliens or Civil War type stuff. But I think there's alternative timelines. Like there's also other things like the 3 waves of volunteers that Dolores Cannon talks about. I don't think that she was a CIA plant. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't want to believe that, because her, more than anyone I've listened to, for the most part, I mean, I haven't listened to all her stuff, but the stuff that I have heard from her, I got like full body chills. It was like a loving confirmation type experience. And she talks about indigo souls. And I had my aura read at a psychic fair in 2017, and I'm an indigo. Like I was indigo, and the lady that read it was like, holy shit. She's like, this is beautiful. I've never seen anything like this. Like, can I show my son? Sorry. I don't know. And she was like taken aback. And I don't know. I just thought that was really cool, because I always resonated with indigo children, and I actually want to make another video about that. But today I just felt like this is the video that needed to be made. So again, like I said, the hope for the future is that things like that, where your gut is like feeling something positive and your gut is giving you those spiritual chills as confirmation, that's what I believe in. That's what I want to envision for the future. I want to envision that we are waves of souls. Like if the indigo thing is true, it's said that the indigos incarnated into the bloodlines. The only way to incarnate into Earth is to be one of the chosen bloodlines. So one of the ancestral lines I was talking about earlier. So a lot of us are born into these families, crazy chills right now, born into these families where there's generational curses laid upon us. And that's why a lot of us have not been able to, it's like failure to launch. We get close and then we get sent back. We get close and we get sent back, and we're stuck in these karmic cycles, but we are breaking the karmic cycles. I have crazy chills right now. So I think something's like coming through me to share this message, but I know my whole life I felt like a generational curse breaker. I've not done the same things that my family or my friends have done. I've been isolated a lot of my life. I've been a person who continues to strive to get better and work on myself. When you see so many people around you who just, they don't care if they're mind controlled. They don't care if they're addicted to substances. They don't care if they are having relations with toxic partners. Like there's so many people I meet that just like don't care about self-improvement, and they're content to just be like mind controlled and stuff. But I've never been like that. There's always been a fighter in me that's here to challenge systems and like to make myself better. And I know a lot of people like me, and I think a lot of those people are the gate kids. And I don't know if every single gate or gifted kid is an indigo or a third wave of volunteer, but I think a lot of us are. And I think there's a reason that we're waking up now. There's a reason that we're connecting now. There's a reason that we all have certain and special ESP, and that a lot of us, when you connect with other gate kids or indigo kids, like I have, like I feel a heart resonance that I don't feel, or that I haven't felt in your regular human. It's like we're led by the heart. We're here to better society. We want to see this world in a better place. And I think that is maybe because maybe our souls are not from here, or we have something, some kind of hybrid DNA or something. We're like, I don't know. Next wave of volunteers, next wave of humanity, or we're here to lead humanity through ascension. Because another weird video I saw today was about some random guy on TikTok, and I expected the comment section to be crazy, but he was talking about how he's from the Pleiades, and something about Earth being under a dome, and we're the last planet, one of the last planets in the solar system who's completely run by dark entities, and the Galactic Federation and the higher, you know, galactic beings and other space creatures don't like that, so they're here to help us ascend and break through the dome. So I expected the comments section to be like outrageous, like this guy's knockers, but the fact that all these people in the comments were like, yeah, he's right, yep, this resonates, it's, I think it's kind of, it's either evidence that people have literally lost their mind, or that they need something more positive to believe in than what's happening around them, or it could be evidence that there's other extraterrestrial type beings on this planet who have woken up and who remember in their soul that something is going to change. So I'm gonna leave you with that. I think good things are coming, and I think you still have an opportunity to be on the higher timeline for the 2030 shift. And I think the more of us that wake up and share information like this, the better chance we have as a collective to raise the vibration and consciousness of the planet and ascend our planet to be with our galactic family. Okay, thanks for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.